Welcome to A More Brilliant Life. We share inspiring stories from people who hit rock bottom, faced their challenges, and transformed their lives. Learn how you can rise above expectations, discover who you are, and reclaim your future.
You look for evidence, but you're looking for the wrong evidence. I think a lot of people are looking for the evidence of why they shouldn't do something, why they can't do something, why they're the wrong person to do something. And it's like, no. Look for the evidence of I have the skills or I will go get the skills.
Well, let's begin.
Let's just rock.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So thank you, Ann Vote, for joining A More Brilliant Life podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about people's life transitions. I really want to know, everybody's stories about how they transformed themselves from person A to person B, and what that process was like for them. And I really want to know the full story. So, Ann, I only know you as post-transformation. We've met after. I know a little bit about your story pre-transformation, but let's start there. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go in chronological order. Let's kind of hear what your life was like before. Kind of that average life. Kind of the 9 to 5er. And let's hear what that life was like.
I love it. So excited to be here talking about person A to person B. And I hope everybody listening realizes there's a person C that's going to be showing up later in life and a person D. And I feel like your podcast is going to help them kind of see that it's not just one transition. There's lots of transitions over time.
Yeah.
So I love what you guys are doing and cannot wait to share my story because I think there's a lot of people that are in a similar situation, which I know listening to Kylie's episode and knowing Gwen's transition, there is definitely this theme of people feeling stuck. So I was an educator. I started teaching in 2005. I taught social studies to middle school, high school kids. Knew I wanted to be a teacher from kindergarten and was so excited to get into that world and be living it and felt like I was really living my dream. What was interesting, though, is about 9 years in, I was pregnant with my son. We didn't know it was a son yet. But anyways, I was pregnant with my second child. And I was coming home with lots of negative stories. And I am a storyteller through and through. And hearing my husband say, "You really haven't told me a positive school story in months."
Wow. So you were the one telling the negative stories. You were kind of, okay.
So I was in the realm of school is hard and I'm a victim to the community and the kids and the other staff and my principal and really feeling that victim mentality, right? So any negative behavior with the student was because that student was victimizing me. Any negative behavior with a parent is that parent had an agenda against me. And I was coming home sharing that with my husband, who at one point said, "You haven't told a fun story in a long time." And I was like, that's because work isn't fun. That's because of all these negative things. And he was like, right, but even you've always had negative things, but you usually have like fun, positive, exciting stories about how you're changing kids' lives and the growth you're seeing in kids. And he's like, you just really haven't told a fun story in a long time.
And it seems insane for me, Ann, to even imagine you being that person because it does.
Yeah. I like to tell people that at that time in my life, I was just really soaking in all the negativity. I wanted to hear it. I was the one going into the break room to hear the juicy gossip, to hear how other people were struggling, to hear about a negative situation with a parent or the principal or another staff member. I was like really magnetic to the negative.
And why do you think that was the case? Why do you think you were drawn to that?
Yeah, great question. I think it becomes a sense of community. I was looking for other people struggling because I was struggling. And so I was actively seeking out how other people were struggling because I think at this point I would have been 30, right around 30, 31 years old. And I was really struggling with myself, and I did not want to let anybody know I was struggling with myself. And so I was looking for how other people were struggling, and I was like pulling it in. And then like Brian said, I was going home being like, guess what happened? Guess what this did? Guess what one kid did? You'll never believe what this parent said to me. And that's not why I got into teaching.
Right. But
And
it's all I mean, to me, it almost sounds like it was born out of a place of loneliness. Like you were
yeah.
trying to find a community of people that were also negative and pissed off at the world.
And I wonder if that, so this would have been 2014. I wonder if that was just kind of systemic within education at that time, that when I first started teaching in 2005, I got to choose what I taught. I got to choose the order. I got to
Mm,
choose my classes. Everything was very open and teacher centered. And we really started to shift to student centered, which was fine. But then having some other things come in and tell us, nope, these are the new standards that actually,
mm,
I
mm,
think, came out in like 2011, 12, 13, somewhere in there. We lost some of that control. And as you know, when people start to feel a loss of control in one area, they look to grab control in other areas.
mm,
And I think I could control the narrative, or, control how I was feeling by grabbing onto what other people were feeling, and then really like lighting the flame and creating a giant bonfire at school of negativity.
mm.
Which I love that you pointed out. Like, I can't even picture this. I think about it now, and I love that that happened to me. I'll be honest. I do really believe I'm a very positive, upbeat, always looking for the good in everything situation. But to know that I was there and that is not who I am,
Mm.
that is not any alignment with who I want to be. And Brian saying that to me was a huge eye opener. My husband is very introverted, does not give his opinions very openly or honestly. And when he said that, it was just like, what is going on? The next day, actually, so this was said, I can't remember exactly what evening, but the next morning, I know that we were bringing my vehicle in for work to be done on it. And Brian had to give me a ride to school, which never happened. And we were on the ride to school, and he was like, I just want you to know, if you ever wanted to quit, you can.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I would
Mhm,
never quit being a teacher. Like,
mhm,
what? This is my life's work. This is my calling. How would I ever quit? But I went into school that day and I just noticed that everyone was coming to me with all the negativity and the drama. And
huh.
I was kind of
But
seeing it differently that morning. And I was
but
like, this is not good.
it was negativity that you actually wanted,
Yeah.
and you actually kind of
Yeah.
created that situation for yourself. So
Correct.
was that kind of a pivotal moment for you, that comment from your husband
Yeah.
Brian saying, and is that was that kind of your come to Jesus moment where you kind of woke up and said, okay, it's time to make a change, or how did that
Kind of.
happen? Uh-huh.
So my story kind of has this odd arc. And so that day, actually that week, I resigned. So in education, you don't resign mid-year, and when you
That
do, you
that
live out
week.
the rest of your year, right? So I resigned in March, and stayed working obviously through the end of the year. I was pregnant, so I knew, okay, this is going to be good for us. We're just going to reset. I didn't know if I would go back to that school. I knew I would go back to teaching. Like, hands down, this is what I was meant to do. And so I did. I took 2 years off, had Landon, had Ella home. She was 2 years old at the time. So I had two children under the age of two, and really enjoyed that. Was able to do some part-time work. I ran a summer camp, so was still able to run those summer camps and feel really good there. And then there was a moment where Brian said, you seem to be feeling pretty good. Do you want to go back to work full time? And I said, yeah, I think I'm ready. So this was 2 years later. There was a long-term art sub position, and I felt ready. My head was clear. I was way more confident. I was excited to go back into the classroom. I knew I'm not going back to be that woman. I'm coming in a new version of me, right? 2.0, if you will. And I went into teaching that year with a totally different mindset. Now, what's my transition, as we're going to talk about, actually is kind of twofold, because I went into that new year with a whole new mindset. I went in teaching art, which is a
Mhm.
huge moment. That to me would be kind of that this pivotal moment you'll hear of where I got to today. I went into the art classroom and I had a lot of my same students, right? It's a small school. And I had a lot of my same students in those upper level art classes that I had already taught. And things were very different.
Mm.
They were different. Respect was different.
Wow.
And I just realized, like, whoa, there's trust broken. These kids don't trust me. And I used to have trust in seconds. So I really had to work on building that. But then in that art classroom, as they started to trust me and I started to trust them, I saw some beautiful behaviors, like kids wanting to show up, like kids asking questions and helping each other, kids growing in their own way without a teacher telling them what to do and how to do it. It
And
was so eye
all,
opening.
all of this was born out of just a new perspective coming out of you.
Correct. And I
Okay.
think my big, if I could tell teachers anything, I would say take a break when you need one.
Hmm.
Because me getting that break got me to realign with who I was, who I was inherently, and who I wanted to be when I showed up in a space. And so I was able to do that. It just
So
so
how do you,
happened.
how
Oh,
do,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, no, no. Finish your thoughts. Right.
Okay, I was just going to say it just so happened that this art sub position was only 2 months, 2.5 months. And then the social studies teacher had randomly resigned and walked out of her position.
Oh,
And my principal said, "You're never going to believe this,
wow.
but your job just opened up and
Huh.
you're done with this art sub job in a week."
Hmm.
So I
Wow.
got right back into the social studies classroom, right back into my own space. However, I came with now not just a new perspective of who I was, but a new perspective of who my students were.
Yeah.
So I was ready to say, time out on social studies. What was going great in art? I was seeing students who were getting F's in social studies and math and science get straight A's in art, showing up, being excited to be there, asking to stay later. And I was like, what was going on in that space that I need to create in this new space of social studies? And so I really changed how I taught. I was very student focused. I was very focused on what was the skill that they were going to gain in social studies versus the assignment you're going to do in social studies. And so, really kind of pitching what they were learning in my room very differently, really focused on each kid's inherent strengths and letting them
Mhm.
know like that strength is worthy in here, that
Yeah.
strength is valuable in here, and just saw a beautiful classroom setting and culture take place. And it was awesome. I only worked for 2 more years,
Hmm.
had an opportunity to step away from the classroom, which was really difficult because I knew what I was creating was beautiful and impactful and influential. I'm still in contact with those kids that I had for just those 2 years when I came back, and just the situations they've run into and how they've overcome them, and the conversations we've had about how they got some of that strength and confidence in social studies has just been awesome. Now, we'd think that was the end of my story, but it's not. I took that newfound energy and I was like, I'm going to put this energy into something else. And I'm going to be able to be home with my kids, which will be great. So I had an opportunity to leave the classroom setting and go work in an online kind of virtual setting with teachers. And what was wild is while I was in that setting, I was hearing people say, teaching is hard. I'm the victim. I'm the
Yeah.
victim to the parents and the community and the principal. And I was like, I've been there. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, I know what you need, or I know there's a way out of what you're doing. However, the job I was doing had nothing to do with that. And so I
Hmm.
wasn't supposed to be coaching them on how to create a thriving culture in your classroom and how to empower students. I was really hired to do something very, very differently. And so as I was working from home, here's where rock bottom hits. I know you've kind of used that term with others. And so here it sounds like, man, she's on a mission and things are exciting. But what was happening is I was working from home only 20 hours a month
Wow.
in this new role. So I had all this open time and nothing to fill it. When you leave a classroom space, there's something amazing that's happening at school for teachers. You are every moment of the day interacting, engaging, motivating, inspiring, creating thought provoking opportunities. You're literally watching learning take place, and it's extremely interactive.
Yeah.
When you go work from home,
Yeah.
it is quiet.
Yeah.
Doubt just like pours into your brain. I really did feel like my worth was tied to my work.
Oh yeah.
And then when I got out and was only working 5 hours a week for an, an organization I loved, but I wasn't getting to use my skills. I wasn't seeing that transformation of student growth. I wasn't feeling, empowered, but also I wasn't empowering anybody else. I got really stuck to
Mm-hmm.
the point of which I would argue it was borderline depression. So
Mm-hmm.
crying, not getting out of bed, making sure to schedule meetings in the afternoon so I could do nothing all morning. This once, very upbeat, excited person who's walking through the halls at 7:30 a.m. being like, "Good morning, good morning, good morning," was now like waking up at 10:45 a.m.,
Yeah.
not wanting to really do much. It was really eye opening of this isn't working for me. This isn't what I want. This isn't my life's purpose. Like, what even is this? And so that moment really then projected me into what I do now. I ended up taking a sales course because I was
Mm-hmm.
selling skincare on the side to make some more money.
Mm-hmm.
And at
Mm-hmm.
this sales course, they asked me, okay, we need you to sell something that doesn't exist. So don't sell skincare, sell something that doesn't exist, or sell something that you didn't create. And I decided to sell a teacher training on how to create classroom cultures that kids want to be in. And
Mm-hmm.
halfway through this training course, they were like, Ann, this is so fun. Everybody's loving your stories. They're loving what you're doing, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't sell something that already exists. And I was like, oh, no, no, this is totally made up.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't exist. And they were like, what? You need to go back to Minnesota and you need to make this exist. And
Uh,
that is really where the fire was lit under me to do what I'm doing now and the transformation I've had since to get me out of that. I don't even know what I'm doing with my life to I love what I'm doing with my life. So version, I mean, are we on person B or C
right.
here?
No,
But
right.
either way, now I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a culture coach. I help companies and classrooms get really clear on the environment they want to create, and I help leaders create that environment through different tools that I've developed or things that have worked for me in the past, and then also just a lot of mindset work,
Yeah.
helping people get through the stuck to get to the
Mhm.
other side of really living in alignment with their purpose. And so
Well, let's
it's
let's
it's wildly different.
oh, that no, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, let's jump way back in time. Like, what do you think the ingredients were that forms the victim mindset that you fell prey
Oof.
to and other teachers fall prey to, or even humans in general? Just it seems like everybody or a lot of people have to go through that
Hmm.
um, that victimhood before they can kind of wake up and see the light. But like,
Yeah.
what are the ingredients that create that? You know?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One thing I recognized is very early in my career, there was so much growing and learning happening. So I stepped into the classroom
Yeah.
at 22. That should
Hmm.
be illegal, but I did.
Hmm.
So here I am, this little 22-year-old. My first year, I sign up for a social studies cohort. So that's 3-year program. So I'm like learning and growing and really building myself and building momentum within, my own actions. And I
Hmm.
think there is a moment when we stop growing
Hmm.
and then we look around and we start placing blame on why we're not feeling momentum or growth.
Hmm.
And that I think is when the victimhood sets in. In my trainings, I talk a lot about your reticular activating system. What you look for, you will find. And I think there's a moment when we get frustrated with ourselves in whatever reason, in how we're acting in a relationship, in how we're acting at work, in how work is affecting us. And we start looking for reasons why we feel that way. And that's when the victimhood starts is, well, I feel this way because my boss doesn't communicate with me. I feel this way because customers are rude. I feel this way because society has trained kids to not connect with people anymore and they're closed up. And we look for all these excuses and reasons why we're the victim, and then we sit there.
Hmm.
And then what happens? Our momentum slows down, our growth slows down. we stop learning and we start just believing that everything in front of us is how it's going to be forever, and then we're stuck. Um,
Mhm.
I knew you were going to ask me about, kind of what kind of pushed you out of
Mhm.
that. And I will say the second time I was stuck,
Mhm.
coming and working from home, what got me out of that mentality and even signed me up for this sales course was a lot of personal development reading.
Mm.
So I found I was doing nothing at home that really set me up for
Mhm.
success. Like I said, I was doing a lot of sleeping and a lot of waiting and a lot of scrolling and wasn't feeling any momentum. And a group
Mhm.
that I was with this skincare business was like, hey, we should all read some personal development and do like a book club. And I was like, oh, I don't read.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, well, you should try. So we did. We got a little book club together and we read a personal development book. And then we were meeting, and then we were talking, and then we were setting goals, and then we were setting actions that would get us to those goals. Then we were holding each other accountable. And so I think there's two things. One, personal development, whether you do podcasts or you do books, or blogs, whatever that looks like, get some good stuff in your brain. There's good stuff
Mhm.
out there. We are being fed a lot of negativity because negativity keeps people stuck and
Yeah.
keeps people from growing and learning, right? And so get yourself with some positive input coming in, but then also find some other people that are trying to grow, right? We hear all the time in the personal development space, you are the makeup of the 5 people you hang out with most. Well, if you're hanging out with your 2 children and your spouse who's been in the same job for 15 years and just goes to work to go to work, and the other people you're hanging out with are overwhelmed moms, guess what?
Mhm.
There's not a
Mhm.
whole lot of growth going on.
You're
Right. And
right.
so find a space, get some accountability, really find other people that are trying to change too. So you guys can
Mhm.
kind of truck
Mhm.
along together. And when you hit that low, somebody else is hopefully a little bit higher and can kind of pull you along.
Yeah.
I think those two things really shifted my mindset and my
Mhm.
dreams. In thinking about today's web or podcast, I was also thinking about, okay, the first thing is I really had to have the personal development to start to dream, to be like,
Mhm.
could I be more positive? Could I be happier? Could I be exercising more? Like I kind of had to think about it and dream about it. Then I
Yep.
had to learn about it. Like, how do I motivate myself? I read the 5 a.m. Is it 5 a.m. Club and Miracle Morning.
Yeah.
Miracle Morning, I would say in
Uh-huh.
2018 pulled me way out of that like wah
Yeah.
wah wah
Yeah.
version because it was like so inspiring of not and not just inspiring, but inspiring of when you get going, just look
Yeah.
at how your day can change. But then it also gave like such clear action steps. And I
Yeah.
needed that in that moment. I didn't need
So
some wishy washy, yeah, stuff.
was that one of the most impactful books that you read then
Oh,
on the at the start of your personal development journey, or which
yes.
books that can you call out that like
Yeah.
really had an eye opening for her? Yep.
For sure. I would say Miracle
Mhm.
Morning was not
Mhm.
just inspirational, but it really got me actually moving.
Mhm.
I've read a lot of other books. I really like Jay Shetty,
Mhm.
his purpose. I can't think of the title. Is it My Life's Purpose?
Uh,
Life's Purpose.
on
I have On Purpose,
on
or that's his
purpose, isn't it?
podcast. But
Okay.
either
Okay.
way, Jay Shetty was really great. Brendan Burchard, read a few of his. I have a funny story about that. I actually read his book in 2020. That's after. So 2019 is kind of the pivotal moment for me. Early 2020 is when I go to the sales course and I start getting all these ideas and I really feel a lot of momentum brewing. But at the end of 2020, I read High Performance Habits.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you right now, I only got to page 82 because the first step in becoming a high performer is clarity.
Mhm.
And I had this moment of like, I just want to keep moving. I don't know where I'm going. Oops.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know where I'm going. Don't ask me where I'm going. I'm just going. Just let me keep moving. Stop. No, no, no. Anyways, it's comical. I've never picked up the book again until 3 weeks ago because I was like, nope, I don't know. I don't know. I don't need somebody asking me what my 5 year plan is. I don't need somebody. Nope. Just let me keep moving slowly like a turtle, and we're going the direction I want to go. Like, we're fine. And just recently, I was like, Ann, vote. You know where you're going. You've got clarity. Finish that dang book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that, yeah. So those I would say. Rachel Hollis, I'll tell you, that was the book club book. Was it her
Mm-hmm.
first one? Girl, Wash Your Face, I believe. Came out right around that time frame that I needed something, and so there were women looking to
Right.
empower ourselves and just be honest
Sure.
about how we were feeling and things like that. Um,
Sure.
and so yeah, I would go those. In terms of my work,
Mm-hmm.
the power of positive leadership
Okay.
completely changed my world in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of this is doable. Everybody says like, "Oh, Anne, I couldn't be as positive as you, or as energetic, or as enthusiastic," and I'm like, "No, no, no, don't be me. Be
Mm-hmm.
you, but you
Right.
can be positive in your mind." And you
Mm-hmm.
can grow and have enthusiasm for the work that you do and the purpose that you're here on this earth to,
Mm-hmm.
put out into the world. And so that
Yeah.
that book I will highly recommend as well. That's John Gordon, Power of
Okay.
Positive Leadership. Yeah.
So Kylie and I, my wife and I, also fell in love with the Miracle Morning, and it had a huge impact on our morning habits. Let's compare. Can we compare your? I mean, you mentioned that you had a 10:45 a.m. wake up at one point in your life.
Yeah.
What is your, compare your old morning habits to your current morning habits?
Yeah. So yes, my old morning habits were sleep in,
Uh-huh.
drink coffee, wait until your
Mm-hmm.
meetings, go get the kids, sit at home all day from then on, and go to bed. And
What time was bed? Yeah.
go to bed at midnight or 1 a.m. Good question.
Well,
Good
uh-huh.
question. Yeah, Brian and I have
Okay.
kind of always been night owls. As a teacher, you really don't get time to breathe until like 9 p.m.
Mm.
And so there was a little bit of me being like, I want my own time.
Yeah.
So there was that. Where yeah, transition to Miracle Morning, waking up between 5:30 and 5:45, getting outside immediately. So like
Mm.
brushing teeth, washing your face, going to the bathroom, but then you're outside. So
Cool.
doing a walk, meditation, and journaling, and
Uh-huh.
then reading. But I usually read later in the day. I found
Yep.
just as a side note, I can be only so motivated in the
Mm.
morning, and I can only tackle so much in that first hour, and then I had to go into mom mode. So in
Mm-hmm.
2019, Landon would have been 5, Ella would have been 7.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, you could only do so much until you had to get the kids to school and get set for your day. But I would always read then when I found a like lull in my morning,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, oh, now what? Now what should I do?
Right.
Where
Right.
you're kind of searching. It was like, nope,
Yep.
grab your book. Grab your book,
Right.
get fueled up. Jay Shetty's got good things to share to you.
Yeah.
Do that, and then you'll get excited to continue working on things during the day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then obviously water in there too. But I'm
Yeah.
struggling with water again. I think that's a good thing for your listeners to know.
Yeah.
You don't just wake up one morning and decide to do Miracle Morning, and the rest of your life you do Miracle Morning every day.
Uh,
There are these like seasons.
right.
This
For
last
sure.
spring, this last spring tore me down. I
Mm.
I think I'm too close to it yet to really decipher what was going on. But I stopped walking in the mornings in
Mm.
January, February, and March, and that was like a total negative game changer.
Yeah. Yep.
Not getting fresh air in the morning, not seeing the sunrise, like that
Mm-hmm.
really dampened the rest of my day. And so luckily mid-April I was like, you are getting up.
Yeah.
You're going to see the sunrise. You're going to walk during the sunset. This is
Uh-huh.
happening. But so to
No, for
anyone
sure.
listening, we don't have it together all the time.
Right. Well,
We're
But Minnesota has that effect on people too. Like,
oh
October, November is when like you can kind of be like, all right, it's coming,
yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just kind of chugs in. And then December, you got the holidays, but like
Yeah.
when January, February hit, and like those cold sub-zero temperatures, and
Yeah.
but what at least what I've found, Kylie and I are in Costa Rica now, and it's very like the weather's very predictable.
Yeah.
And we've got the 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of daylight. That's always very steady throughout the entire year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a part of you that like starts to miss that, like, that going down into the rabbit or the deep hole
Yeah.
for a minute, and then like coming just crashing back out of it,
Yes.
right? In like that, because that's what
Yep.
happens in Minnesota is like you hit that April, May, June, July, and then you're like, okay, we got to go have barbecues. We
Yes.
got to go get the boat out. We got to go,
Yes.
like, and so you kind of,
Oregon. Yeah.
you have this natural ebb and flow, and when, there's pluses and minuses to taking that ebb
Yeah.
and flow away.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up because I think as a person, I want to be so consistent every day,
Hmm.
all the time. And
Right,
then I don't want to be bothered by
right.
negative weather, negative
Hmm.
degree weather or ice. I think that was like the worst is when there's
Yeah,
ice. I can't walk. I can walk in negative 12 degrees and 14 and 25. I don't mind bundling up. I can't walk when there's a ton of ice. And so just things like that that like now interfere. I'm like, no. I want to
yeah,
be a consistent human being. I want sunshine and I want
yeah,
positivity. The
yeah.
end. And it is. You almost have to like really create that for yourself. And this last February, March, I got on some phone calls and I had somebody say to me, "Oh no, if you're struggling, what is going on?" And I was like, "No, I get to struggle." I kind of got
Hmm.
sassy a couple times, being like, "I get to struggle. I get to
Yeah,
call you crying, please."
yeah.
And they would be like, "I know, I'm just not used to this. You're usually the one I'm getting advice from." And I mean this in a beautiful way. I love that I've been able to be consistent and positive, but I was really struggling. And I think there were people in my circle that were like, "It's really hard when you're struggling." I was like, "I know.
Mhm.
Let's go. Somebody, come on." But
Yeah,
honestly, I mean, that's good advice to anyone listening too. Like, you have to be the one that pulls you out.
yeah,
My husband couldn't have done anything, and people in my circles couldn't have done anything to get me out of that. You have to get yourself out of it. But yes,
yeah.
get some accountability to help you just like keep that movement going. But yeah,
So, let me ask this, like as you were transforming into your new career, kind of letting go of everything and becoming self-employed and
yeah.
going into all that, like making these major transformations, like what was the reaction from the people in your orbit? Did you find did you find people that kind of wanted you to remain the same old Anne that they've always known, or maybe on the flip side, did you find people that were like, yes, I know this was, I knew this was
You
inside
knew.
of you all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, heads up to anyone not
Hmm.
watching, like my
Hmm.
eyes are tearing up because I don't get
Oh
to
yeah.
talk about this. And
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be honest, and I'm sorry if you are listening and you know me and this was you. Um yeah, there was a big group of people who did not give a crap and did not want to see me win. And a lot of them were very close to me,
Mm.
to the point that it took 3 years for a very close individual in my life to say, "I'm really proud of you and I'm excited for what you're doing."
Wow.
But the
Congratulations.
first 2 years, it was,
Mm.
"What, you think you're going to make money? You're going to just train other people? What are you training? What do you even
Uh-huh.
know? What do you know that
Uh-huh.
they don't know? What do you know
Uh-huh.
that teachers don't already do?" And it was
Yeah.
very like, be quiet, sit down, go back to work. Teaching is steady. Why don't you just go do that? You're such a good teacher, then go teach. I
And
had
what
that a
what
couple
effect
times.
what effect does that have on your imposter syndrome, on your
Oh my
on
gosh.
your
Yeah.
self-image, and like
You
I can't imagine what that felt like.
I'll be honest,
Uh-huh.
in my very
Uh-huh.
early, venture, early 2020, or right after, like probably April, March of 2020, I decide I'm going to launch some courses and I'm going to teach what I know. And I develop a system. I still use it today. So I love this system. It's called the Impact Method. And I was like,
Mhm.
great, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to put this out into the world. I'm going to charge like barely nothing and, whatever. And I got 2 people to sign up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was really hard for me to sit
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
um, and to go, okay, this isn't, you're not supposed to do that. Nope, nope, sit down, Anne. Did a couple one off free webinars.
Yeah.
What was sad is that the feedback I was getting was so valuable and beautiful. Like, this is going to change my life. Why haven't I heard this before? Oh my gosh, I can't wait to use this with my students next fall. I was hearing all this great stuff. But what I was feeling and hearing from people not even in those courses were, that's not going to make you any money. What are you trying to be, an influencer? And so I really, from July of 2020 until April of 2022, I did nothing with that business.
Wow.
I
July.
literally
Okay.
sat in the,
Uh-huh.
I can't do
Uh-huh.
it. I'm not going to make any money. I'll
Uh-huh.
just keep doing this part-time
So,
thing. Um, yeah, really, I mean, I have said out loud to a lot of people that if I would have just ignored everybody else, I think I'd be in a very different position. And I'm not placing blame on anybody. They are also
yeah.
stuck. And when
Yeah.
people are stuck, they want other people to be stuck. And
Yeah.
I had a very big vision that nobody could even really wrap their head around. And as I was explaining that vision, I mean, I saw people like get up and walk away from my conversations. I saw people go, "Oh, but how's your kids?"
Wow.
And you're like, "Oh, I'm really excited about this." And they would
Uh-huh.
go, but if you, I mean, what would happen if you started speaking in other states? You wouldn't be with your children. Is that what you want? I mean, there was so much negativity, um,
So what is your
which was hard.
advice yeah, I imagine. What is your advice to someone then who wants to go through this transformation
Yeah.
and is likely to encounter these similar situations? Yeah, how do you
I think same
how should they best navigate it?
same
Hmm.
action steps I gave earlier. Start reading positive or listening
Okay.
to positive input. It's got to be
Uh-huh.
there because your circle might give you just negative input. I
Okay.
luckily, my husband was very supportive of what I was
Hmm.
doing. Thank gosh. Because I think if he would have said, like, oh, this isn't going to work, I would not have moved forward at all. Because he's in my space all the time, right? But so get positive input flooding into your brain. The input of you can do this, you can make a change, your life is meant, you're meant to grow, you're meant to transform. Like, start finding that content because
Okay.
it's insanely important to be having that coming in because what you might be experiencing, in I was going to moms groups and they were very much like, oh, no, just be a stay-at-home mom. No, don't be dreaming big. Don't be thinking about having a business. Um, so that was occurring. And then, my own extended family was very slow
Mhm.
to get behind what I was up to. Um, and
So
so, anyways, so keep flooding stuff in and then also find a group that's growing.
yeah,
Ignore.
yeah,
You can still
yeah.
love the people in your life that are saying, I don't think this will work. Love them with all your heart. But you got to get with the people who are like, we're going to make this work. I think that's, I even, back in February and March when I was really struggling this year, 2025, I ended up
Hmm.
finding an accountability group because I was like,
Oh,
nope,
cool.
I'm not with people that are growing and I need to be with people who are growing. So,
Super cool.
so I
Oh,
think
that's great.
that's advice forever, right? The moment you feel like you're hitting that downward slide, like find some positive input, go for walks, get that fresh air, be listening to something really moving, and then find your people. Yeah.
That's incredible. No, that's incredible advice. So was there anybody that stood out on the opposite end of the spectrum that like was not really interested in your impact method, but like was interested in you as a person in your personal growth and was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I
Hmm.
think there were, what's interesting is they're like, what would I word these people? Like on the outskirts, like on the border of
Yeah.
like, they're not family, they're not super
Hmm.
close friends, but they're right on the border of like friends and
Hmm.
acquaintances.
Hmm.
And they would be sending me messages anytime I did a Facebook
Uh,
video. They would send me a private message and be like, I love your stuff. You're incredible. You're doing great things. You're changing people's lives. And I would be like,
cool.
I am. Thank you. Thank you for
Uh-huh.
letting me know that because I feel like everyone's angry when I post a video or, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, yeah, there were some cheerleaders. And then there were some people who were like, duh, of, of course you were going to go do this. Like when I would call them and say, "Oh, I'm questioning whether," and I would be like, they would be like, "What? Ann Vote doesn't question things. Come on, get over that." I had one woman who is a life coach, and she's a good friend of mine. She was selling skincare with me, and we got on a call once, and she was like, "What's in your way?" And she literally did like a life coaching 30-minute session with me of like, "What's in your way? Get it out of your way. Knock it off." Like, just knock it off, Ann. You're thinking about stuff that doesn't even apply to you right now. You're letting, I heard Kylie say, you're letting your limiting beliefs literally drive your story. Like,
Hmm.
put them away and get going. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
there've just been people on the outskirts that I'm so grateful for. And you know what? Such good advice for anyone who's starting a business. I know you guys are writing a book. You guys are doing
Hmm.
life coaching. The
Hmm.
people closest to you
Hmm.
will not always be your first supporters.
Hmm.
They are going to wait until you experience success
Hmm.
to kind of come alongside you. And if you wait for them to give you the go ahead, you'll never do it. And,
What's
you
in?
know, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was just going to say what's interesting is that I swear everyone has that own dynamic inside their own mind. Is
Yeah.
like you need to see the evidence first before you think you can start something.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and it doesn't work that way. You
Ever.
you have to
Yeah.
start something. Yeah, you have to start something, and then the evidence comes later.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a really difficult, and then of course that just creates this feedback loop in your own mind of imposter syndrome
Yeah.
and keeps you spinning your wheels.
Yeah. And
Um,
you look for evidence, but you're looking for the wrong evidence. I think a lot of people are looking for the evidence of why they shouldn't do something, why they can't do something, why they're the wrong person to do something. And it's
sure.
like, no, no, no. Look for the evidence of I have the skills or I will go get the skills. I
Hmm.
want this for me. Where in my life have I already done this? There's
Hmm.
an exercise that someone ran me through that was like, hey, before you place a dollar amount on what you're worth in terms of my coaching, they were like, tell me everything you've done that's allowed you to get really good at what you do now. And I mean, she went back into like, oh, you were a cheerleading captain in high school? Oh, so you know how to
Hmm.
lead people. Oh, you
Hmm.
were you were a dance coach? Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So you know how to organize and but anyways, this whole thing of like, Anne, you have millions of hours in which you have been in this role. So stop telling yourself like, well, I've never done this. Yes, you have. It's just look different. And I think there's a lot of people out there who maybe want to be a business owner or, they want to start their new thing or they want to write a book or they want to start a podcast. And they're like, but I don't know. I don't have any skills to get started. Have you ever had a conversation with someone before?
Hmm.
Great, you
Hmm.
can go start a podcast. Have
Hmm.
you ever written in a journal? Great, you can go write a book. So I think there's something to be said too about like instead of saying, well, I don't have any experience and I can't, start looking for the evidence of I already kind of do this. Now, how can I go
Hmm.
turn it into something that I want to build or that I feel
Hmm.
really purposeful behind?
Yeah. So I've only ever known you, Anne, as this incredibly energetic, like extremely bright, talkative, like enthusiastic person. Like, talk me through like your life's arc. Like, were you born that way? And then like, have you always been this talkative, energetic, like enthusiastic person, or like what? You know what I mean? Like, what was that like?
I'm assuming my first grade teacher will be listening to this. She is a big podcast fan, and she will be laughing hysterically right
All
now
right. All
because
right.
we had lots of teacher meetings because Anne won't stop talking. So, yes, yeah, I've always been this talkative. I attribute so much of the positive parts of my personality to my dad. My
Mhm.
dad is this version. He is got such a positive outlook on life every day. He looks for the good in everything. It's downpouring rain, and the first words out of his mouth are, man, we needed this. This is going to be
Mhm.
so good for the grass, not,
Mhm.
oh, another day with rain. So that was in my life all the time. My dad went to work very early in the morning, and so he was home by the time we got home from school. And then my mom went to work after school drop off and worked late into the night. And so I was with this positive ball of energy who was
Mhm.
not just positive, but always looking for the good in people, always looking for the good in every situation, always looking for the learning and the growth. And then also just promoting others all the time. My favorite story to tell about my dad is we would go to the grocery store and he would see one of his workers. He was a manager of like the Mankato Park Department, the ball fields. And so we would run into an employee of his. And here's how my dad introduces people. Anybody listening, you need to steal this. It is genius, and it makes your life, as the person who says it, just full of gratitude and beauty, and it makes the other person you're talking to just light up. He would say, "Oh, there's Jake," and he would turn to me, even though Jake is standing right there. He'd go, "Ann, this last weekend, Jake worked extra hours to make sure that the Peppers tournament happened, and he is an incredibly hard worker. I trust this man with my life." And then he puts his hand out and he goes, "Jake,
Wow.
how are you?" Even if
Wow.
he just worked with Jake that day.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I know my dad to talk to others, introduce
Yeah.
himself to the spouses that are there, right? He'd see Kylie and he'd say, "Oh, do you know the man you're married to? Let me tell you. Last week, he did X, Y, and Z, and I love this about him." And then he'd be like, "So, Kylie, it's nice to meet you."
No, that's incredible.
Insane person to just see and have in my life every day. So I laugh because I think I was manipulated in the best way to believe I could go do anything in life that I wanted to do. And luckily, he instilled that in me at an early age, because I think when that negativity hit, I knew I was never going to get to that bottom point, because there was that piece of my mind that would say, "Your dad told you you can do anything, and you really can." So I have always had this, talkative connection. My kids will laugh and they'll say, "How come you have to talk to everybody everywhere we go?" And I'm like, "Because isn't it amazing that we meet strangers everywhere we go? Like, it's so cool that the other day we were standing in the line to try on swimsuits. It was just Ella and I at Target. And I made a Facebook friend in about 3 minutes, because we made a joke about something. She then started chatting with us. I find out that she does work like me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we got to keep connecting." And Ella laughed. We got in the car and she was like, "Are you going to Facebook that woman?" "Oh my mom, what was that?" And I was like, "That is literally the best part about life." It's like just meeting people and having fun. So yeah, that's really been my personality for a long time. And
Oh, that's amazing.
I think some of my lows that I've experienced, even February and March, would be because I've lost or I've lessened the amount of connection with other people. So I know there are people listening right now who get fueled by in extroverted interactions, and there are people like my husband who get drained by those extroverted interactions. And I'm somebody who just gets fueled up, and I think I recognize that when I've hit some of these lows, it's because I've locked myself in an office. It's because I've stopped reaching out and connecting with other people. And I think that's just really important for my own mental health, to know I get fuel and momentum by just being with others. And whether they're filling into me or I'm filling into them, that's really what kind of keeps me moving and keeps me going.
So you've kind of had this positivity instilled into you at a young age. But what do you say to the person who maybe is stuck in that negative loop, or maybe even like, can you even help that person that doesn't want to change? I mean, like, they just want to be a negative Nancy all the time, and like, is there anything that can be done for that person?
I love this question. So, as a
Uh-huh.
culture coach, right? So, my
Mm-hmm.
business is Impact to Influence, and I help leaders move the needle, create environments they want to be in. And I meet a lot of leaders, Jake, that are so stuck. And they're like, arms crossed, leaning back in my meetings, being like, "What are you possibly going to tell me that's going to change so and so's behaviors? Because so and so is a terrible, crappy employee." So I do feel that a lot of people that I work with start out very stuck. And sometimes it's the victimhood, and sometimes it's just the negativity. I think there's a lot of people who are our age who grew up with parents who were not filling them up with positivity. They might have been a burden to their parents. They might have felt like an inconvenience to other people. And now they want to stay small, and then they've been stuck in that staying small mentality. My message to them always is, what do you want? You can choose to stay stuck. You can choose to keep believing that that employee will never get better. You can choose to hate your job. That is so up to you. Or you can choose to open your mind just a little bit, think a little bit differently about this individual, maybe think a little bit about your position, and you can choose to take an action and we can just see where it goes.
Have
And
you ever said it like that, like direct to their face,
oh
like
yeah,
verbatim? Yeah,
all
all
the
the time.
time. Yeah. I find myself saying a lot of times, like, ooh, that sounds like a choice. So I use a little bit of sarcasm in my coaching, which it just depends on my audience, right? But I do work with a lot of men in manufacturing, and I think they've been in a system that hasn't changed in 40 years, but people have changed a lot in 40 years. And
Absolutely.
so there is a lot of individuals that I work with that just come from this very stuck mindset, who've maybe been raised a certain way or have been taught to work a certain way. And I'm coming in being like, but what if? But
Hmm.
what if Jake isn't a crappy employee? What if Jake is just unclear on what you need from him?
Hmm.
What if Jake is really struggling with his purpose here? He thinks he's just pressing a button.
Hmm.
What if we can change that for Jake and Jake starts being motivated to come to work, being excited to do his job, and feeling more purposeful in his work so he actually exceeds your expectations? Is that
Hmm.
something you would want? And a lot of times they're like, oh man, you'll be a miracle worker if we can make that happen. And I'm like, let's go. Because it's going to be that the individual that I coach is going to be the miracle worker. They're going to be the
Yeah.
ones that create the change. It's just me
Yeah.
kind of being there to help them really get clear on where are we going? Because we can
Hmm.
stay here. Sounds awful, but sure, we can stay stuck. That's a choice. Or we can get moving. And it's
Hmm.
it's incredible when you hear them come back a couple weeks later and they're like, well, I never thought in a million years I would see X, and you'll
Hmm.
never believe what happened yesterday. And I'm just like fist pumping like crazy because it happens. It
Hmm.
really I think people have a lot more control than they think they do,
Hmm.
and kind of giving them the permission to step into what they can control is
Hmm.
just a beautiful way to see start that transformation like you said. And I
Yeah.
think too, again, going back, if you are listening to this and you're feeling stuck, start taking just little actions. That's what Miracle Morning is all about, right? It's like here are some
Hmm.
little actions you can take that truly set you up in a totally different trajectory.
Sure.
Um, where do you want to go? Get clear on what you want to feel, and then
Hmm.
start taking small actions that'll help you feel that way more
So
often.
what? So your some of your first actions were, reading personal development books and getting in with a group of other, accountable, but like even take it back even further, like somebody that's really down in the dumps and like can't even wrap their head around that. Like what kind of baby steps could you recommend for that person? Is it really just you gotta start, like start?
You do got to
Uh-huh.
start. I think
Yeah, yeah.
journaling could be really huge.
Yep. Yeah,
I
journaling.
recently heard, and I think I'm going to
Uh-huh.
develop a challenge around this. I recently heard about an idea that a woman threw out on TikTok that was like, what if all we did was think best case scenario?
Hmm.
And so I'm going to do a challenge coming up in the next couple months where it's literally just every morning. Your challenge is to write a little message of best case scenario for today. So,
Hmm.
best case scenario for Monday is I don't hit any red lights on the way to work. And I walk in and somebody brought donuts.
Hmm.
And somebody asked me if I want to, like chat with them at lunch. And you just best case scenario. It's never going to go that way.
Hmm.
But really starting to see a new version of what your life could be like, I think that could really start to create some movement because
Hmm.
then if I already wrote that down for the day, that's going to be my best case scenario. When it's 11 o'clock and nobody's asked me to sit by them at lunch or nobody's asked me to chat with them at lunch, I'm going to go ask somebody. I'm going to say, hey, Jake, at lunch, you want to chat about XYZ? Like, let's do it. Right. So now I'm going to start taking action based on what I want, which is
Hmm.
what we want people to do, right? You do this in life coaching too. You find out what do
Hmm.
you want? Let's go take some of those small actions to create it. But I think people get stuck on, I don't even know what I want, right? I told you that. I was
Yeah.
really stuck
Oh,
on that clarity
100%.
piece. Get out
100%.
that piece of paper every morning. And maybe it's the same question every day. What do I want? What do I want? How do I want to feel? What do I want it to look like? What do I want a year from now to be like? I wake up a year from now. What's different? Like
Yeah.
just really start investigating that and then
Yeah.
take those small actions or big actions, right?
Yeah.
To go make it happen.
So put your speculative hat on and like go back in time and let's pretend you just got another teaching job and you're still kind of in the W-2 world. Um, what would your life be like, or what would Ann Vote be like if you were still just kind of a 9 to 5er? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
do you think you'd be
You know,
clinically depressed right now, or?
I
Uh-huh.
think of a bunch of things. And again, I'm going to get
Uh-huh.
very emotional now because
Uh-huh.
I look at how my children are today, and it
Mhm.
is beautiful.
Yeah.
My son wants to ask me about my day. We're
Mhm.
calm. We
Yeah.
are having supper at a consistent time. Um, my
So it's the
daughter,
impact that, yeah, it's the impact that you've had on
uh,
your orbit then. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it was. I remember
Mhm.
one of the reasons I also resigned is maybe the week before Brian brought up me telling negative stories is Ella would refuse to let me to put her to bed. So Ella would have
Mhm.
been a year and a half, and
Mhm.
right, anybody who has a year and a half old knows that there's a phrase. It's
Mhm.
either mommy do it or daddy do it. And we were running into everything was no, no, daddy do it. No,
Mhm.
no, daddy do it. Because I was
Mhm.
coaching. I was also, as a teacher, you're going to basketball games and, different events throughout the evenings. And then I was also coaching dance 2 nights a week. So, so 4 nights a week, I'm not putting Ella to bed. And on the nights that I was home, I'd be like, oh, let's go upstairs. And she would be like, no, no, daddy do it. Be
Mhm.
like, let's get on your pajamas. No, daddy do it. And then she would just get screaming mad. And so I just remember I was getting so frustrated and short with her because not because of her, but because
Right.
I was choosing not to put in time with her. And so I look at our lives now. Because of me working from home, I was able to homeschool for 2 years during some of the COVID stuff. We were able to read together, play together. I was super calm because I didn't have to rush, rush, rush and be on Zoom with my students and, leave me alone, leave mommy has to work and get out of my space. I was able to, make it work and do my work when I needed to or when I had
Yeah.
time to. And
But there it really takes the self-awareness. It takes the
it
personal
does.
development to not feed into that negativity coming from your daughter
Yeah.
and not feed it, not be more of the problem.
Yeah.
Because I
By
can totally
reacting.
imagine these, yeah, exactly. I can
Yeah.
totally imagine scenarios where people are just, don't want to deal with that pain that they're feeling about it.
Yeah.
And it just makes the whole situation, feed itself even worse.
Right. And I think
Hmm.
once I could be in a space where I felt really purposeful, I could then also calm down when I was in a space where I was mom versus working, my job. And so
Hmm.
now I can, yeah, have the conversations on the drive home and I can ask what we want for supper. And there's so much more willing to engage with me. Hey, we're going to make spaghetti. You want to come help me with that? There's just such a calm in our house that I know would not be there. I, I,
I,
I can just
yeah.
promise it would not be there if I were still teaching. One of the things I wrote in my resignation letter to my superintendent was I really want to, as a person, I really want to be an awesome teacher and give everything to my kids. But I also want to be an awesome mom. And I'm really, as a person, struggling with how to do that. And I'm giving everything to my students and I'm coming home with an empty bucket. And
Wow.
they're getting to see like the worst of me, which is
Have
not fair. If you were to ask my kids, my students, how was I doing? They'd be like, oh, she's energetic and bubbly and all the things you know of me now.
right,
That was
right.
happening at school,
Mhm.
not what was happening in my mind.
Have
So
you ever shared that resignation letter publicly?
I have not. I don't even know if I could find it. I
Uh-huh.
typed it at
Uh-huh.
school and sent it in.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's all right.
Um, but yeah,
So yeah, but like it's those quiet, silent, alone moments that are super like truth telling, and they kind
yeah,
of force this self-reflection inside you. And and some people, most the typical is like, oh, I got to check something on my phone, and like I gotta flip through Facebook or whatever. You want to distract
yeah,
yourself, but you don't even realize you're doing it.
right.
It's You don't
Yeah.
even realize that that's why you're checking Facebook, is because you don't want to face these emotions that you're feeling.
Yes. That's what I was
Uh-huh.
feeling in February and
Uh-huh.
March. I ended up
Yeah.
putting a time limit on my phone now.
Yeah.
So I can
Yeah.
only be on Instagram for 45 minutes a day,
Uh-huh.
and I can only be on
Uh-huh.
Facebook 45 minutes a
Yeah.
day, which at
Uh-huh.
first was like before I even was
Uh-huh.
getting out of bed, I had hit
Yeah.
the Instagram mark. I was
Yeah.
like, and vote. What are we doing here?
Mhm.
And so what's fun now is I haven't hit the limit in the last 2 weeks. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
look at you.
Nice.
You're not even on it. So I do
Yeah.
think there's a little bit of that. You talked about self reflection. Like, what are some things that aren't getting you what you want? Because we're very
Mhm.
quick to point fingers at why we can't accomplish our goals. And
Mhm.
we're very slow to say, and these are the reasons why I'm not. And I think that would
Mhm.
be another really great exercise. If you're looking to get moving and create some momentum, like, what do I need to get rid of that's just not helping me meet my goals? And that for me was stepping away from a couple individuals in my life. So there was a
Mhm.
lot of negativity going on, and I had to walk away from that. By the way, when I went back to teaching for 2 years, after that little break and I came back with renewed energy, I promised myself not to go to the break room. So
Yeah.
we had lunch in my classroom or in other people's classrooms that I knew we were going to be having fun conversation that filled us up instead of having the negativity share out. And so
Mhm.
those were things you got to set some boundaries, and
Right.
sometimes that's really hard for other people.
Yeah. So, just a couple questions left here, and then
Yeah.
we'll wrap it up. But you mentioned, you've got a much better relationship with your family, with your children. But like, is there anything else that you're like? What are you most grateful for about the new life that you have now?
Ooh.
Is it?
It's
Yeah.
going to go back to my kids.
Yeah.
In a sense of I love that I get to verbally hear the transition that I've gone through come out the mouths of my kids. Meaning, I'll hear Landon say things. The other day, he got very upset and he was having a major meltdown. And once we got through the meltdown, he literally says to me, "Thank you so much for staying calm when I was being so mean to you."
Wow.
He's 10.
Wow. Yeah.
He's 10 years old and he's saying,
Yeah.
because the old me would have jumped right up there and we would have met
Hmm.
fire with fire.
Hmm. Yep.
And, so just being able
Hmm.
to say that I'm seeing, I think right now we're hearing a lot about trauma and trauma continuing throughout the generations.
Hmm.
And I think what I'm going to be so proud of, what I am so proud of and grateful for is I've kind of broken that this is how we do things and
Hmm.
hopefully started a new trend of,
Hmm.
we got to take care of ourselves in order to take care of other
Right.
people. And, you know, what we
Right.
say and do with others has impact,
Right.
whether that be negative or positive. And
Right.
so I could be acting a very different way at home and it would have a negative impact on my kids and my spouse and myself. And so to be so aware of who I'm being in the world is creating impact on other people, whether I like it or
Yeah.
not.
Hmm.
There's impact happening, there's influence happening. And if I can
Hmm.
be really intentional about the impact and the influence that I'm putting out, I'm hopeful that it's positive going in to the people I'm engaging with. And
Right.
so I think just I'm grateful for that recentering, that realignment. That's real.
Right.
I did not feel
Hmm.
aligned in February and March, and I could see it showing up in my relationships, in my business. Um,
Hmm.
and I needed to get back to my alignment and really return to my purpose and my skills, utilizing, you know, what I have built and grown within me, getting back to that and connecting with other people.
So do you think there's something of a global movement right now, like kind of a global personal development movement that's taking place? I mean, I don't know if this is just my reticular activating system at work, or is there something really happening right now on a global level?
This is so interesting. I would
Hmm.
have argued 2 years ago, a
Hmm.
1000% yes.
Hmm.
Um, and now algorithms have gotten smarter and or whatever. But I would say 2 years ago, so what would that have been? 2023. I was seeing much more of this movement and I was hearing
Hmm.
about it and I was like getting different podcast recommendations my way and things like that. I haven't seen that in the last few months. Um,
Hmm.
but again, is it because of certain technological advances that want me to feel a certain way? Possibly. I'm really hopeful, though, that there is movement towards we can't stay here.
Hmm.
I think that's a global movement that's happening right now. Is
Hmm.
this isn't working? We can't stay here.
And here
And
is what is
here
like,
is here is stuck. Here is
uh-huh,
negative.
uh-huh,
Um, Believing, that the world is burning down, like
hmm,
those feelings. We can't
hmm,
keep here. We can't stay here.
right,
It's going to produce some really negative results in the end that we
hmm,
know have happened
hmm,
historically. And so I think there is a movement of I don't know where we're going, but we can't stay here.
hmm,
And that
hmm,
could be personal development. I agree with you when you're in the space of like listening to new people and you're in coaching
right,
sessions and things like that. It very
hmm,
much it is who you're hanging out with, I think, for sure.
hmm,
I would love
hmm,
to see more of it. I would love to see more of my friends and, people in my community and people in my state or whatever, really embrace more learning and growth personally. Um, and I hope it's coming. I
hmm.
think there was a pretty good movement of it, and I feel like it's slowed down a little, but I really
Yeah,
hope
you
it's
almost
going.
wonder if COVID kind of created that spike
The
of
boost.
interest because there was so
Yes.
much time for people to reflect and so much time for people to have silence and um, and not be with others and then maybe we're just kind of starting to level back
Maybe
off to our
coast.
baseline,
Yeah.
yeah, again after that little peak. But
Yeah.
okay, final question: do you have a personal mantra?
Ooh.
Or another way of putting it is like, what are you all about? Like,
Yeah.
what are you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think something I that helped me get through February and March is like change is possible.
Hmm.
Like I just have to keep anytime I feel like I'm not where I want to be, or anytime I feel like, oh, this isn't what I wanted right now. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Where are we
Hmm.
going? Change is possible. Let's just go.
Hmm.
Instead of, getting kind of deep into that, like, nope, now we're here and we're never going to move. Like, change is possible. I've heard
Hmm.
somebody say change is inevitable, which is
Hmm.
good too, right? Like, change is inevitable. We're never going to be able to stay the same. So why wouldn't we kind of take action to propel us toward the change we want to go versus let
Yeah.
change kind of run us over? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now in this time frame.
Hmm.
Rereading that Brendan Burchard book. I don't know about you guys, but I write in all of my personal development books,
Hmm.
and it was wild
Hmm.
rereading my 2020 brain. Like
Wow,
I
I
should get
bet.
some examples for you, but there's literal like stars, and I'm like, I am here. And when I read
Uh-huh.
that sentence, I'm like, you are so not there. This is
Uh-huh.
crazy that you felt that way back then. And so it's cool to see, that change is possible. And here we are doing the things, and person C is doing this right now. And I know there's a different version of me coming in the next few years. And then I know as I age, there's going to be other versions of me. And I think that's really exciting. If you think about it that way, it's not that I have to go get to my peak person right now. That's not
Hmm.
even how it's supposed to work.
Right,
So let's just keep
right.
getting better.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
no there is no done, there is no,
No.
because like like the point you made earlier, it's like when you stop growing, that's pretty much when you start to lash out at the world and you
Yeah.
start to
Yeah.
see things. And so growth just is I think it's integrated into the human species, and I think it's just something that we need to be constantly doing.
Yeah.
But
And I think my former teacher heart is like, how do we say that to young people? I think there has been, even in our lives, right? There was very much a you go to school, you pick what you're going to go be, you go learn how to be that, and then you're done. So I think
exactly.
that also was hitting me in my early
Yeah,
30s. Like, am I done?
exactly. Yeah.
I can't be
Yep.
done.
No, I
And
agree.
that's such a like such a belief I want to just break down of like,
Right.
no, you get to choose, and then guess what?
Right.
You get to choose again and again
Right.
and
I
again.
know. But that belief is very integrated into our culture, into uh I don't know if it's just America or
Our
around,
systems.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's like you pick your career, you pick your lane that you're going to be in, and then you stay in that lane and you don't divert.
Yeah.
Uh, and once you become an adult, then oh no, then you just do your job every day, and you hope someday you can retire.
And I think that is changing. So when you were asking
Hmm.
about, the globally, I think that is changing. I think people are
Hmm.
starting to realize we've been played.
Hmm. Right.
We were not meant to work in the same job for 46 years.
Right. Hmm.
Time out. Our joy and
Hmm.
our happiness, we are
Matters.
worthy of that. And we're
Hmm.
going to go get that and create that. And I
Yeah.
think that is slowly starting to shift. And I think older people are really mad that that's how young people are coming out of college right now.
100%. 100%. No, I feel that. I feel that. It's like, no, they do. There's a little resentment because it's like, wait a second, why couldn't we have done that? And it's
Yes.
like, well, you didn't do that because you chose not to do that, number one. But then number two, like the cultural
Yeah.
setting that you were in for your entire life, like didn't even allow you to think that way. And
Yes.
that's the stuff that I just gush over because there's a book, Thinking Fast and Slow,
Oh, yeah,
uh
I've read that.
Daniel
Yeah.
yeah, Daniel Kahneman, and it's
Yep.
like, the entire thesis is like there's so much stuff like right in front of our eyes that we don't even see, and it's
Yeah.
all about your ability to think differently and think bigger. Mhm.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been
Well,
great, Jake.
good. No, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you joined us today, Anne, and you have an incredible, inspiring story, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. Actually, I should ask, what's next for you?
Yeah.
What's in your future? Yeah.
So excited. I am
Uh-huh.
creating a new system to
Uh-huh.
learn the impact method. So I mentioned on here that I have an impact method, which is how anybody can go from where you are to what you want to create in an environment. That could be at work, which is what my typical message is, but also at home. What do you want to create at home and
Mhm.
how can you take
Mhm.
actions on that? And so launching this fall will be the Leader Collaboratory. So this is
Cool.
an opportunity for a couple different ways for people to connect with the message of the impact method. There will be an online course that's offered
Mhm.
in September and October. It's going to be an
Mhm.
8-week course where you really get to not only learn the information but also apply it, be coached weekly so that you can really be getting some exponential results while you're in that course. And that'll be followed up by an opportunity for you to stay in the impact method. And then also some in person. So if you are local to New Ulm, Minnesota, we're going to have some in person events for the Leader Collaboratory as well. The whole idea is let's get leaders together again for accountability and growth
Mhm.
and everybody working on the same thing, really creating better environments or more thriving environments for themselves and the people that they work with. And so we're going to create a space for people to do that in person as well as an online option.
Mhm.
So be on the lookout. You can go to
Super cool.
annvote.com. That's ANNVOTE.com to learn more about all of this. And then also the leadercollaboratory.com isn't up and running yet, but it sure will be by the end of the summer.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
excited for
No,
that.
that's incredible, Anne, and it's just it's so inspiring the amount of work that you put into all of these things, and just how much effect you're having in your world. Yeah.
It's been
Hmm.
a beautiful transition, and
Hmm.
it's just so exciting when you can take what you know that you know has worked and put it into a system that somebody else can learn and use very quickly. I think that's what I'm so excited about is to create really quick change instead of over the next course of so many years, you'll see a difference. It's like people have a hard time waiting for that. So let's just go create change right away. And that's the
Hmm.
whole mission.
Yeah. Well said.
I love
All
it.
right. Thank you so much, Anne,
Awesome.
and we will keep in touch. I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Thank you so much. And best of luck with the podcast and the book. Can't wait.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got some value out of hearing Ann Vote's story of transformation. If you want to find out more about us and our mission, check out our website at brilliantlifejourney.com.